Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa mawalah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We have with us now hadith number 5. So who would read it for us, please?
Assalamu alaikum.
Rahmatullah.
Narrated Abu Huraira, Allah Apostle Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "You should not pass urine in the stagnant water which is not flowing. You may need it, wash in it." From Muslim, Abu Huraira reported that Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "None of you must wash in the stagnant water when he is in the state of junub, sexual defilement.
Sexual defilement or sexual impurity. Okay. Jazakallah khair. The hadith of Abu Hurairah is referring to stagnant water. Water that is not flowing, as in the case of rivers and streams. And there is the instruction of the Prophet not to urinate and then wash from it. And also there is the prohibition of the Prophet ﷺ not to bathe in it while in the state of sexual impurity. Why is that? Well, simply scholars say that because this makes the water impure, or at least it would make it dirty so that people after you would not be able to use it. And this leads us to the issue of what type of water to use when we would like to purify ourselves. Now, the scholars said, and they have differed in this regard, they said that the waters are divided into 3 types. Tahur, which is possible to uplift the impurity with it, and also to wash the impurity with it. Tahir, which is a lower degree, which is pure in itself, but it cannot uplift the purity of a person. You cannot make wudu with it, but it's pure. And the 3rd category, which is najis, impure, that does not uplift any impurity and cannot clean or remove any impurity because itself is rendered as impure. Scholars, meaning the majority, this is what they believe. But the most authentic opinion is that water is one of 2, either tahur or najis. There isn't something in between. And the scholars objected. They said, we're the majority. How do you dare say such a thing? We said, with all due respect to you scholars, Allah described the water in the Quran as tahur. So how can we introduce something in the middle? He said, I'll give you an example. If I have a pot of water and I throw into it tea and I turn it over, what is this? This is tahir. It's not najis. But can I perform wudu with it? I said, no, Shaykh, you cannot. Then say, see? I said, with all due respect, Shaykh, but there is a small problem. What's the problem? Shaykh, this is not water. This is tea. So we're talking about water. Water is either tahir or najis. So if I have water that has tea in it, this is tea, not water. If I have a pot of water and I put some flour in it, or I put some sand in it, and I turn it as much as I can, what is this? Water with sand. Water with some flour in it. It did not change. It's still called water. So I can offer wudu and I can clean dirty or impure things with it. Likewise, if it rains and I see a pool of water, I go, it's muddy. Can I perform wudu from that? Yes, it changed. The color is yellow. And I cannot drink it. Yes, you cannot drink it, but it is considered to be water. It's not like the tea we mentioned earlier. So The most authentic opinion is that water is divided into two, either pure or impure, tahir or najis. And the Prophet is indicating to us stagnant water, which made scholars talk about the quantity of water that can be considered impure if an impurity falls in it, or pure if not. And they have differed so hugely and greatly. If you open the books of fiqh of the Shafi'i, of the Hanafi, of the Hanbali, of the Malki, I would be lost. They're saying it should be 10 armful by 10, and they did not speak about the depth, and they did not speak about this and that. Why? Because there are a number of hadith that govern this. Hadith number 1, the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, the water, if it reaches the size of 2 qullah, 2 pots, it does not carry any impurity. Which means if it's less than 2 pots, then it carries impurity. So scholars started thinking and calculating what is the meaning of 2 pots, this big, how big are they? And they could not reach a conclusion, because there isn't anything to find out. There is no hadith that clearly states this up. And they differed, yet the most authentic opinion, and I'll give you this in a nutshell. The most authentic opinion is that water is pure. The Prophet says in the authentic hadith, water is pure and nothing renders it as impure. This hadith was reported by Abu Dawood and At-Tirmidhi in the Sunan. The water is pure and nothing renders it to be impure. So, is this hadith by itself sufficient? No, because I can simply bring some urine and put it in. Is this pure? Definitely not. Why? You just said the hadith, water is pure and nothing renders it or makes it or changes it into impurity. So why are you changing your mind? I'm not changing my mind. When you study hadith, when you study fiqh, you have to study the whole picture. Don't take what you like and turn a blind eye to the things you do not like. A student of knowledge does not take one verse, khalas, this is the verse. This is what Khawarij did. This is all the deviant sects had done. They take one part and this is it. We follow that. Okay, what about the rest? No, we care less. We care less about it. This is wrong. The Prophet ﷺ, in another hadith, said that water is pure unless changed by an impurity that affected its taste, its color, or its smell. However, this hadith is weak. Sheikh, as long as it's weak, why are you saying it? I'm saying it because the consensus of all scholars of Islam that this rule is to be applied. Consensus? Yes. The consensus of all scholars, no one differed. And the scholars say that the evidences of Islam are taken from Quran, Sunnah, Ijma'. Ijma' meaning consensus. And that is mentioned in Surah An-Nisa, that whoever disobeys the Prophet ﷺ and follows a path other than the path of the believers, then he will be thrown into hell. This is one of the evidences of Ijma'. So, scholars all agree that this water is pure unless one of the 3 characteristics change with, and this is underlined, one of the 3 characteristics change with what? An impurity. Why is so important to underline? Because I can turn the tap water and I have pig iron pipes, and the water that comes down rusty, so the water is yellow. Can I make wudu? One says no, Haram. MashaAllah. When did you come? Today I'm a student of knowledge. MashaAllah. Nice to meet you. Why is it haram? He said, yes, the color has changed. And this makes it impure. Ya akhi, sit down. Or sit down. Go and learn. Why? We said that the scholars underlined this and said, if the three characteristics, what are they? Smell, taste, and color. If one of these three characteristics changed with an impurity, with an najasa, with urine, with defecation, with blood, and in this case, we rendered this to be impure. Whether the quantity is this big or the quantity is this big. So the quantity does not make any difference to us. 2 pots, 5 pots, a swimming pool, no problem. Even if it's a swimming pool, yes. How many children go in the swimming pool and in the swimming pool say, what is he doing? I know what he's doing. Okay, can I make wudu in that swimming pool? Huh? Sheikh, can I make wudu in that swimming pool?
No.
No. Why?
Because the impurity has been mixed with that water.
Mumtaz. Who agrees? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Almost the majority. Who disagrees? 1, 2. So we have 2 faqih. We have 2 people who understood the lesson. Again, I'll repeat. We said that the water can only be considered impure if the 3 characteristics change with an impurity. The boy who urinated in the swimming pool, can you see the color changing? Can you smell? Can you taste? It's so big. It immediately dissolves. So the water is pure. I can make wudu. It is extremely important to know how we reach this conclusion. Because once you understand it, khalas. Any doubt? Yes.
Sheikh, the doubt is the word impurity is not mentioned in the hadith, although it's weak. The word impurity is not mentioned there.
In the hadith,
If I'm not
the hadith is to tell you, as we've said, it's not authentic. It's weak, but the consensus of the scholars of accepting it, and the consensus of the scholars that it should be changed by an impurity. And that is why it's almost impossible to find water that did not change the 3 colors in nature. In ponds, in lakes. Usually there is a difference. The taste is different. If you taste the Nile water, you'll find it different than a lake, for example, in here or there. But this taste, color, or smell was not changed by impurity. And this is the determining factor. Once one of these characteristics changed by an impurity, it becomes najis. Whether it's a big pond or a small glass of water. So I hope this answers the question. We have a break. After a break, inshallah, we'll continue to take your questions. So stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. So, we're still discussing the water and the hadith where the Prophet says, do not urinate. However, if you look at the hadith, the Prophet says, do not urinate. So, can I defecate? It's okay for me if I defecate in that water, in the stagnant water. Why? The Prophet said only do not urinate. This in fiqh, it's called qiyasul awla, which is measuring things to whatever is on top of that, in the sense that Allah says in the Quran, do not say to your parents, uff. So someone comes and says, I'm going to slap my father. Wow, haram, major sin. No, Allah said don't say uff. Allah said the least. So by default, what's more than that, it is haram. And not only that, some scholars said, the Prophet said, do not urinate in stagnant water, then wash from it. Therefore, if I urinate in a pot, and I come and I spill the pot in that stagnant water. I did not urinate in it. What kind of thinking is this? Is this applicable? Islam talks to logical people. When it tells you do not urinate, it means do not filth, do not spoil that water so that people can come and drink it or use it or whatever. And that is why the Prophet says in the hadith, ittaqu al-la'inain. Be aware of the two things that cause cursing to come and fall upon you. What are they? The Prophet said, alayhi salam, to urinate or defecate in the path of the people or in their shade. Imagine in a hot, sunny day, you're tired, you're sweating, you want to go to this tree and rest. And when you come, you find traces of people urinating and defecating. What will you do? May Allah curse who did this. And likewise, while walking, you step on something. Who did this? May Allah curse him. So the Prophet is telling you, don't do this. And this indicates that Islam cares a lot about public opinion, cares a lot about the others. It's not me and the flood comes afterwards. No, it is us as a community that we should take care of these things. Okay, if you have any questions, by each session, mashallah, I'm finding that people are having more and more questions. So this is supposed to be informative, not to be delusional.
Once we say that our urination detriments the wudu, it becomes null and void. If you urinate.
Okay, if you urinate.
Yeah, so wudu is...
you have to make wudu.
Wudu is...
yes.
And the other side, now suppose, just of late you said, in a pool of water, if a child urinates, now there's a certain portion of urine is there, minuscule, but then the heart says, there's water, certain portion is there.
Okay.
So how do we, set
if
the mind?
you follow your heart, you will be doomed, because Islam is not following your heart. Islam is following what you see, what you hear, what you sense, what you feel. And that is why I meet people and I say, why don't you pray behind this imam? He said, wallahi, my heart tells me he's not a good Muslim. Subhanallah. Why are you sitting with this person who's innovator and deviant? My heart tells me he's okay. Why are you dealing in riba? He said, my heart tells me. Islam does not tell you to listen to your heart. Islam tells you to listen to facts. And when I come to judge a pond or a pool of water, I judge it by facts. Because even shaitan will come. Even if I have in my house a big tank full of water that I drink from, wash from, etc. After a while, shaitan will tell me, how do you know that a mouse did not drown in it and died? My heart tells me, as long as this tank is outside, things might happen to it. I'm not going to use the water. Shaitan comes and says, how do I know that my wife is not cheating? My heart tells me something is wrong. Why? Fear Allah. Your wife is committed to hijab, she prays 5 times, everybody knows. I have bad feeling. Yesterday I came into the house and she was calling someone on the phone, and the minute I came in she said, I'll call you later. So definitely she is having an affair. She could have been speaking to her mother, to her friend. She might have been speaking to someone you don't like, your sister who you did not speak with for 10 years. She's trying to reconcile between the both of you. Why do you always think negative? My heart is telling me. So this is not the Islamic way of dealing with things. As Muslims, the Prophet tells us, alayhi salatu wasalam, I do not judge your hearts. I judge what I see. Allah is the only one who judges the hearts. Therefore, the scholar said, a big pool, swimming pool, 6 people, 10 people urinate in it. Do you feel it? Do you taste it? Do you see it? No? You can make wudu and the water is pure. Second question.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Salam.
Sheikh, once it is ascertained that such a thing has been mentioned in the Sahih Hadith, authentic Hadith, then we are supposed to follow it blindly without questioning the logic behind it. Or else there's a possibility that we might be thrown into the hellfire. Like, take for instance, right from a young age, we have been taught that once we step out of the toilet, we are going to say Gufranaka, which means, I seek your forgiveness. So why do we have to apologize? Because answering nature's call is something which is a natural phenomenon.
So you're asking about the word ghufranak. Why do we ask for forgiveness and apologize for a call of nature?
Exactly.
No. It has nothing to do with that. When you say ghufranak, you're saying, oh Allah, I seek your forgiveness. Not because a sin I have done. No, because Allah relieved me from the toxic materials that, if not gone out, would have killed me and poisoned me. Right? So that is why similarly when I go out after answering the call of nature, I pray to Allah and say, oh Allah, as you have relieved me from these toxic materials, so I ask your forgiveness to cleanse me from my sins that would burn me in hell. So it has nothing to do of sin. You did not do a sin. This is a blessing. So saying ghufranak is not because you've sinned. It is a resemblance. As Allah relieved you from the poisonous material in your body, you're saying, oh Allah, also relieve me from the sins that would poison my soul on the hereafter. So I hope this answers it.
Assalamu alaikum. If one of my brother is living life not according to Islam and not taking tahara according to Sharia, so what is the rule actually? Is my brother living like a mushrik?
He is not doing his tahara properly?
Yes, correct, according to Sharia.
Now this is something that we have to all know. Allah does not accept prayer without wudu. Allah does not accept prayer of a person who is not in the state of purity. So if your brother or this relative of yours is not in compliance with the Quran and Sunnah, so he does not purify himself, he urinates without washing, without using toilet paper, maybe he does not pray at all, then in this case he's not a Muslim. And that is why we will come to, inshallah, pass by a hadith that deals with purifying yourself from urine when you urinate. But if a person does not pay any attention to the purity, this means that he doesn't pray. And if a person does not pray, he is a kafir. Whether he believes in prayer, or he is lazy, or he doesn't believe in prayer at all, he is a disbeliever. Because the only thing, the only form of worship that the companions all agreed upon, that abandoning is kufr, is prayer. If you don't give zakat, you're a great sinner, but you're a Muslim. If you don't perform hajj, if you don't fast Ramadan, you're still a Muslim, a great sinner. If you do not pray, then you are not a Muslim. And with this we conclude our session. Until we meet next time, fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.